And that remarkable story of a little girl who lived through a plane crash that killed her entire family. She then walked through the woods barefoot and bloody to get help from a neighbor.
And we're now getting a better sense of her bravery that night. And we're learning more about her family, how much her father loved to fly, and the hours he spent in the cockpit. ABC's Gio Benitez has the very latest from the scene in Kentucky. Gio, good morning to you.
Dan, good morning to you. That little girl is now out of the hospital, reunited with the rest of her family. Take a look behind me. Those are the woods that she walked through. It was freezing that night. This is the house that she knocked on the door of. A remarkable journey for that little girl. This morning, a new photo of the Gutzler family posted by a relative on Facebook. And now new details about a little 7-year-old girl named Sailor, the sole survivor of the plane crash that killed her father, mother, sister, and cousin.
The 7-year-old has just come out of the woods alone, scratched up, advising she was involved in a plane crash.
The plane taking off from Key West, Florida Friday night. Dad in the pilot seat taking the family back home to Illinois. But just before 6 p.m. local time, he reported engine problems, losing contact with air traffic controllers, the plane crashing, ending up upside down. But nobody seems to have seen it fall from the sky. FAA records revealing the dad at the controls, Marty Gutzler, was an extremely experienced commercial pilot and a certified flight instructor. Police say little Sailor, alone, barefoot and bleeding, walked through the dark, thick brush and woods, following a light in the distance, ending up at the doorstep of Larry Wilkins, trembling.
She thought her arm was broke and her left foot was hurting pretty bad. She was barefooted, by the way. She had one sock.
Police saying Sailor had to get through hills, creeks, even railroad tracks in total darkness.
She walked through briars and thorns and very steep. There's one creek bed that was probably 12 foot deep that she walked through to get from point A to point B.
The whole time knowing her parents had died.
I wouldn't want to go in that woods right now in the dark. There's no doubt in my mind. She's a brave little girl.
Back home, the family is beloved. Marty Gutzler and his wife, Kimberly, owned this furniture store in Nashville, Illinois. Their home where all the neighborhood kids would gather, a basketball hoop right out front. Family friends say Marty, a longtime pilot, had made that same trip to Florida before.
He loved flying. I mean, you didn't have a conversation with Marty without him talking about flying.
And we've now learned NTSB investigators are on the ground here in Kentucky right now. They will see the crash site for the first time today. Elizabeth.
All right, Gio, thanks so much. And let's bring in ABC News aviation consultant Colonel Steve Ganyard. Steve, you just heard NTSB investigators now on the ground. What will they be looking at right away?
Well, Elizabeth, remember that the pilot reported problems with one of the engines prior to the mishap. So they'll be looking first at the mechanical problems that might have brought this airplane down. But we also know that they went through a fairly significant area of heavy weather. So perhaps weather played a role as well. But these will be all parts of the puzzle that will need to be put together in the next couple days.
And I know you spent the night overnight studying all the flight data from this flight, the altitude, the speed. What were you able to deduce about what happened to that flight?
Well, again, they were going through an area of weather when the problem occurred, so maybe there was a weather factor in there. But we saw them also in a very slow, controlled descent. And then there was a left-hand turn off to the west right prior to going off the radar. So perhaps they were setting up to go in to divert to another airport where they could land safely, but about 2,700 feet, all radar contact was lost.
And was that, but how soon or after was that when the pilot had rated that he was having engine trouble? Where in that descent did the engine trouble message come?
Just minutes after that. So this happened fairly quickly. I'm sure that there was lots going on in the cockpit. We don't know what other circumstances there may have been. Maybe it was both engines, but that's what the NTSB will be there to find out today.
Lots going on in the cockpit, but Marty Gutzler was an experienced pilot. He was even a flight instructor.
He was, but if you think about it, you have a heavy airplane. It's night. You've got bad weather, you lose an engine. Even the most proficient pilots would be challenged by this scenario, and one little mistake could have led to disaster.
All right, Steve Ganyard, and it's still remarkable, Steve, isn't it, that little 7-year-old girl walked away from that flight?
It is remarkable. It's a great miracle.